alarms. You're listening to the KATcast, a weekly podcast from the staff you love to listen to each weekday on 94.3 Cat Country. Killian Hart and Jordan J. Now, here they are, talking about life, love, and everything mid-Missouri.
Yes, indeed. Welcome into another KATcast. We're glad you're along. Today, we're going to reveal a little bit about ourselves. Ooh. As we talk about some things about us, surprising things perhaps, that you may not be aware.
Also, or maybe some not so surprising things.
Can you tell also we had an event today? We're all in red. We're all matching
right.
today.
Exactly. All wearing our Cat Country gear.
Yeah, how come you're not wearing your polo, Kevin?
Because I didn't get the memo.
We always wear these whenever we have
casual Kevin
why
over here.
Always? Do you mean whenever I think of it?
Well, just what we're supposed to do, but okay.
I don't remember a memo saying wear your collared or whatever. So, plus I like t-shirts better anyway; they're more comfortable. So,
well, Kevin, why don't you get it kicked off? Why don't you reveal a thing that no one knows about you?
Okay, believe it or not, and you may have no trouble believing this. I was an extra in a movie.
Ooh.
The 1985, actually it was a mini-series, 1985 mini-series, North and South. On ABC, Patrick Swayze, David Carradine, and others in this thing. And it was an incredible experience. I was living in Mississippi for a brief time, in Natchez, Mississippi, for a few months. I was 26 years old. They put out a casting call in the local newspaper. Hey, we're looking for people to be in this miniseries. And I had the hair. I looked very Civil War-ish. You know,
do they have mullets in Civil War time?
Well, there wasn't a mullet at that point.
Because I've seen old pictures of you, and that was a heck of a mullet you were rocking.
It was just long hair and beard, and I looked at... So, and at the time, they were paying like $40 a day.
Hey!
Which then wasn't bad money.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
So, but I got to meet David Carradine. Mm-hmm. And
did you get to meet Swayze?
I briefly, just, hey, how you doing, sort of thing like that. But what was cool was David Carradine, because, of course, you know, he was famous for Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah.
And in between shots, in between scenes, he was there kind of showing the kids, like, Kung Fu moves. And there were a bunch of kids standing around watching it. It was wild, man. It was really a fun thing. So when the series actually hit TV, the only part that survived was a little part of my shoulder. There was a crowd scene in a house, and they were talking about the possibility of needing to go to war. And there's a bunch of us going, yeah, we go to war against the North. And there was just me, like a little corner of my shoulder, who was very enthusiastic about it. So.
Oh, wow. So if we watched it today, you could be like, there's my shoulder.
There's my shoulder.
There's my shoulder. That's me.
Exactly
That's me.
Right. But that's me. That was my claim to fame in 1985. I was in North and South.
Okay.
Jordan, what do you got?
So, a lot of people may not know this, actually. So when I was young, I actually fell off a cliff. I actually fell off a cliff and lived.
An actual cliff?
An actual cliff.
How high?
Pretty high. As a matter of fact, if I didn't smack branches, like I fell into trees.
More than 20 or 30 feet?
Yeah, the trees broke my fall. Like, branches smacked me on the way down. Like, if the trees wouldn't have, like, embraced my impact, I probably wouldn't have been here
How
today.
old were you?
I was young. I was very young. I might have been 2, 3.
Good grief!
Where were your parents?
So they were right by me. So this thing wasn't built well.
Aaron, I have so many questions.
I know. So they had a railing.
Did you fall out of a satchel?
No, they had a railing, right?
Yeah?
Which, yes, stops normal-sized people from falling off this cliff. But little kids can kind of just get right through it, right?
And he's the reason they made the new rules at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. No, and funny enough, too, like, my grandma gave me a red lifesaver, too. So, like, you know, when they found me on the ground, they thought that, you know, like, blood was coming out of my mouth, but it was this red lifesaver. So,
he's got internal bleeding.
So I'm like, what an aptly named candy that is.
Wow.
You know? But, yeah, no, if I wouldn't have fallen into those trees,
and
and
it isn't like TV where you can suddenly just grab onto the branch, right?
No. And like I said,
well,
like
when you're 4, you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, and they had a railing sort of thing, but there's enough of a gap for a small kid to be able to lean through and just fall. And that's exactly what happened. Just kind of lean through, you know, and
Do you have any scars left from it, or
not really, man? Honestly, like I got
just internal.
Yeah.
I mean, like as an
emotional.
Adult, you like go through wildcat survival mode, you know, where you're like you're grasping at limbs or anything, right? But
wait a minute.
little kids don't think about that.
Kid.
Bear Grylls is calling. He wants to know if you're interested.
I know.
Yeah.
Call it divine intervention, whatever. But the trees caught me on the way down, and that's the reason why I'm here today. I would imagine. So
apparently, also Afraid and Naked is calling, or Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid.
I probably wouldn't last too long on that show.
Yeah, no.
I'd slip on a rock and be like, "Oh, it's over. I'm bleeding."
Yeah,
and that's not the worst of it.
Yeah, I don't feel like burying my goodies in the wilderness. No thanks.
That too.
Yeah. Okay, so at 35, I had a pulmonary embolism, and that's exactly how I met the husband.
Yeah.
Wow. It was the disease
not a disease. I had it. Basically, it was one blood clot behind my left knee that was spitting off smaller clots, and those clots were going to my lungs.
Wow.
And they weren't quite sure how long it had been going on, but I was nearing the end of my time.
Yeah.
I was extremely exhausted. Like, I just thought I had a chest cold. My chest felt heavy, and it was kind of hard to breathe. But I just thought that I had a chest cold. I just thought, oh, man, I'm getting sick. This is no fun. My mom is actually the one who came over on a Sunday. Like, I hear I'm laying in bed. I'm just like, man, I'm tired. I'm just going to, take some cold meds and sleep. And then I could hear my garage door. And I'm like, oh, man, who's here? And there's only so many people in my family that had a garage door open.
Yeah.
And it was my mom. And after church, she'd gotten really nervous because she said I didn't sound right on the phone. And so she took me to urgent care. They were closed. And she said, good, because I secretly wanted to take you to the ER. And that's what she did. I walked in. They're like, what seems to be the problem? I'm like, my mom's a hypochondriac. Can you just look me over?
Sorry, ma'am, that's not the problem.
Confirm I have a chest cold and we'll be on our merry way. And quick evaluation led to a CT scan, led to, oh my gosh, you're having a pulmonary embolism, to me being slapped into an ambulance and, headed to Columbia. I think because there's a clock in the ambulance. So from the time I got in to the time I got to Columbia, it was 13 minutes.
Man.
Yeah. And
85 miles an hour or something.
One of the EMTs who was working on me in that ambulance turned out she was a listener. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
She wanted to know, hey, what was the answer to breakfast for you?
No, she just said that she enjoyed listening to us and that I was in good hands. And
that's great.
She was right. I got out of the hospital a week later, and that's when I first went to hematology, and the husband was a nurse there.
Wow. I'm not laughing because I think this story is funny.
No,
I'm laughing because it sounds like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Does it not? Radio DJ finds out she has something and goes there and all of a sudden meets her husband through all these miraculous events.
It. The sickness
you
brought
almost
her
died
and the husband together.
You realize if your mom wasn't so worried about you and wasn't such a hypochondriac, that
I know.
It would be like bad news bears.
I was just drifting off to sleep, basically. Things were starting to
your body was just shutting down. Like, let's go to sleep now.
Wow.
And it's funny because a couple of months earlier, I knew blood clots ran in the family on my mom's side. So I went to a hematologist, and he was like, you have one clotting factor. It's nothing to worry about. No, I've got like 3 or 4 clotting factors plus hemochromatosis, which is too much iron in the blood, which causes thick blood. So it wasn't a matter of if this was going to happen. It was a matter of when. But needless to say, I went to a different hematologist after I got out.
Wow.
Parents have this weird, premonition that they can sense when something's off. It's weird.
And they are not going to stop till they get the right answer.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
I can't even explain it.
I remember I just remember being kind of mad at my mom. I'm like, it's a Sunday. Do you know how much this is going to cost me?
Yeah.
I will go tomorrow. And if I wouldn't have, they're like, you might not have made it through the night. Yeah.
Well, we're glad we still have you.
Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact.
Yeah.
How about that?
Kevin, you got another one?
Yeah, I do. And this one isn't hugely amazing, but it's to me it's cool because I don't know a lot of people have done this. I've actually been in a hot air balloon twice.
Oh, nice.
Always wanted to do
twice.
that.
Twice, yes.
I wanted to do that too, but then a part of it freaks me out a little bit because you're like,
no,
what if
I'm
something
telling
goes
you,
bad
it's
or
a
But
wrong?
if that's how I'm meant to go out, that's how I'm meant
It's
to
a
go
magnificent experience.
Falling from a basket.
1996, I was in New Hampshire. And it was like my first year working at this radio station. We were doing like a special thing for one of the local dairy places, ice cream places. So we did it then, and then I did it again in Colombia. Remember the annual, they used to have the balloon festival?
Oh, yeah.
I did it there, I think, in 2003. And I'm telling you, you get up into the air, it is completely silent.
I would love it.
The only noise you hear is the burn. When they do the burn, that's it. Then silence. It's incredible.
Really?
And everything on the ground. And it isn't like flying. Because when you're flying, you're inside a plane and you have the noises of it's completely different. And you have a window next to you. You can look down and see everything below you. And it just, you see the world completely differently.
I bet.
It's amazing. It is just amazing. And then when you land, because I wasn't flying it. I had somebody flying it for me. It was me and the other person. I think it was one other person there too. But when they land, it's kind of like, okay, here you go, here you go, here you go, and then thump. When it lands, there's thump, thump. Like that.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was just great. I would love to do it again.
Wow. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've always wanted to do like a hot air balloon, but I've always been like a little iffy about it. Of like, what if this doesn't go the way
you take more chances driving to work every day, Jordan.
That's very true. You know, I didn't even think about that. Well, to piggyback off of you being an extra, I was also an extra in a movie in Boonville, actually. So they came through. The movie was called Saving Grace B. Jones. Matter of fact, I even had some speaking lines in it, but I got cut. Of course.
See? That's the equivalent of my shoulder.
I know.
Okay.
I was like, dang it, man. I would have had an IMDb of me.
My shoulder and his lines. Together we have like a half a scene.
At least I'm in it. Like there's scenes where like I'm clearly in the shot.
Yeah.
And like I said, I had some speaking lines.
You can freeze and actually see you. Yeah.
I was one of the main characters, the daughter. I was her friend. So like I'm in a lot of scenes. And like I said, I had some speaking parts, but they got cut for whatever reason. But Michael Biehn was in it. I'm trying to remember who else. It was from Walking Dead. He played Herschel. Why can't I think of his name?
Yeah. I know who that is. I'm watching him in a current thing called the OA.
Yeah, and I just can't remember his name
Netflix,
for some reason off the top of my head. But he was in it too. I mean, there's a couple of pretty famous people in there. I remember talking to Michael Biehn about like I was a huge fan of Tombstone. My dad was too, and so. Me and my dad, we were with each other, and he just so happened to be talking to Michael Biehn, and be like, how long did it take you to learn to flip the revolver around on your fingers? So, he goes, I practiced that for like months, 9 months at least, before I could get it down, But yeah, I was an extra. I got invited to like the after party too. The whole thing was really cool. It was a cool experience. They turned like the Thespian Hall in Boonville into like a schoolhouse. It was really cool.
That's way cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
How about that?
I have not been an extra in anything. Get that knocked out. Let's see. Okay, something semi-interesting. I don't know if it's interesting or not, but I've lost 120 pounds in the last decade.
Does he ever visit?
Oh, no. That one was more like 290 or so.
Erin's got this condition where, like, the older she gets, the younger she looks. She's, you got like
it's a Benjamin Button thing.
Yeah,
going
you got
on.
like the actor, like, said, like some of those actors, you're like, they've looked the same for 30 years. It's like Erin's like looks some reason younger than she does like when she was
I'm going to be ready to retire, and she's going to be like,
Yeah, exactly.
You're just holding Erin at the end. She's like,
I'm gonna be like, Papa. Yeah.
that's great. That is great.
Yeah. I mean, no specific trick. I mean, I've done a lot of different things, and again, it was slow. It was like 20 pounds here, 40 pounds there.
But, and probably not being able to eat certain things too.
Well, I mean, yeah, it
might contribute. I don't know.
I wouldn't say I've got a wheat allergy, so I don't eat gluten or anything like that. So I wouldn't say that really helps, because don't get me wrong, I'll still like my carbs. But I probably don't eat them as much as some people do. Looking at you, Kevin Hilly.
Everything. I love wheat in general. Like wheat bread's my favorite.
Well,
I eat grains all the time.
Okay, so I was born in 78. So if you're around my age, you might remember in the 80s there was the big giant push, big health kick of replace your flour with wheat flour. Mm-hmm. I remember my mom. I mean, she baked everything using wheat flour.
Mm-hmm.
We made homemade bread. She even went so far as pie crusts.
It was wheat,
cakes. Cookies.
Yeah.
I mean, they all, and as kids, we liked wheat the way it tasted because it was, like a nutty flavor.
Oh, yeah.
I had no clue until I got like late 20s, early 30s, that's when I started getting hives. Anytime I would eat anything that had wheat attached to it. Growing up as a kid, I didn't have that, side effect. It's just something that developed.
See, my grandma liked wheat a lot too, and funny, like I remember one time she made like wheat spaghetti. We'd go over there like every Sunday to eat like dinner with him, and my grandpa was sitting there eating. And he's like, "Something wrong with this spaghetti," And she's like, "I used wheat noodles this time." He goes, "Well, don't ever do that again." I was like, "It's fine, Grandpa." He's like, "I don't like it."
It's not fine.
Yeah.
It was just out of the usual.
On this. I gotta tell you, I don't like change.
I'm telling you, if your parents were attempted to be healthier in the 80s, it was all about wheat flour and skim milk.
I don't know.
I grew up on skim milk. Let me tell you, not to get off track, but like I remember I went over to my buddy's house, my friend's house, and he had whole milk, and that was the first time I ever had whole milk. I grew up on skim, and I'm like, why does your milk taste so delicious? I'm like, what's different? And then I realized I'm literally drinking like this much milk and this much water, right? Like I'm like, this is insane. I didn't realize. So again, all I've known was skim milk my whole life. So when I had whole milk, I was like, in a whole new world, man. I was like,
I grew up on whole milk, and as an adult, we started drinking 1% and 2% milk.
Yeah.
And to the point where if I drank whole milk, man, it felt like a milkshake.
It does. It's thick. It is, yeah.
But I didn't used to like 1% milk because to me it was almost like white water. That's what it
literally
seemed like.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like the very first time I ever had Tang, like at a friend's house. My dad, both my parents, they grew up. Neither family was well off. A lot of kids and everything. So my parents really know how to make a buck stretch. And my dad's way of doing that was watering down everything. Oh, you gonna throw away that ketchup bottle? Oh, nope. Hang on, give it here. He would go over, put a little water in it. Shake it up. That's
exactly
why I don't like
do
ketchup.
that with shampoo. Do that with body wash.
Bars of soap. He'd take the slivers and mash them together. Here's your new bar. Hey. But like
it's a circle.
Say hello to the new bar. It's same as the old bar.
It's like green, white, and like tan. You're like, what is this?
This is a combination of Dove, Irish Spring.
But he would water down everything. So like Kool-Aid. We used to get the orange juice concentrate, and he put like twice as much water it was supposed to. Same with Tang. So as I got older and I started going to friends' houses for sleepovers and stuff, and their moms would serve us,
like actual
follow the directions, Kool-Aid and orange juice and Tang.
You're like, this is nothing like at home.
I'm like, this is amazing. What is this? They're like,
you must be rich.
Yeah.
Listen, adding water to it extends the life of the orange juice and apple juice. I do it to my kids too.
It's
less sugars.
There is a point where you can no longer do it. But
because eventually you're like, this is not what I wanted.
This orange juice is translucent. Yeah.
This has failed to be orange juice any longer.
What'd you do? I poured water in it and said, orange juice. Okay, here you go.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we have actually covered a number of health things here today, so I'll give you my final one. I almost died in 1980. I came very, very close to death. I had a disease. I was 21 years old. I came down with something called aplastic anemia, which basically your body stops creating blood cells, red cells, white cells, platelets, because they all come from your bone marrow, and it just stopped making them. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up at Johns Hopkins University Hospital in Baltimore. I ended up getting a bone marrow transplant from my brother, who was a perfect match. And it was my brother that ended up saving my life. But it got to the point where I was like real skinny. I mean, I hate to be this graphic, but I looked like an Auschwitz victim. The pictures, like I had bald and like very gaunt and everything. It was hard. And my poor mother, and dad, but my mother.
Not having the blood cell, that's vital, right? So that probably start taking effect on your body.
It did, and it starts off as like little peticuli, because you're not creating cells anymore. You're not, and my poor mother sat by my bed that whole time. She knitted a brown Afghan. I still have that Afghan. It's precious to me. But it was an incredible healing. God healed me from that. There were guys on my floor who and it was the leukemia ward. You know what I mean? Because it was similar.
Right.
And I saw young guys like my age dying. And I was the one who, and a lot of times what would happen was, if they got the bone marrow transplant, maybe it wouldn't take. There was something called graft versus host disease.
Oh, wow.
Where your body rejects my brother's immediately. He was a perfect match.
Wow.
And so that is something that every year, March 20th, I always, because that was the date of the transplant, March 20th, 1980.
So is there ever a risk of that coming back? Is there anything that could trigger your body to do that again?
No, because they weren't exactly sure what it was that caused it to begin with. My mother took some fertility drugs before I was born, because she had lost 2 babies before me. I was actually supposed to be the third one born in our family, but it turns out I was the oldest. She lost 2 before me. So that's part. Also, I worked a little bit with pest control chemicals at one point earlier in my life. So maybe that. They're not really
There's
sure.
lots of maybes, yeah.
They're not really sure. But I got chemotherapy, I got radiation, total body irradiation. And I mean, when I lost all my hair, I lost all my hair. Okay.
Wow.
And I talked to a doctor years later and about this whole thing. And he said, yeah, you know what? If this had been now, we probably would use a lot less radiation. But again, they didn't know.
They didn't know.
Bone marrow transplants at that point were still not, you know.
That was really, I mean, kind of like new technology, wasn't it?
It was. So you're looking at a living miracle sitting here, because I was supposed to be checking out, but it was not time yet.
You just got a whole bunch of people in hazmat suits, and they're like, drop him into Chernobyl for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes. It'll cure him. No, just kidding. Sorry.
I work with that.
Sorry, sometimes my mind goes
Bring him out!
Goes to a dark humor. Like,
it's time!
Yeah.
The cord snapped!
You're just in this like metal box. You're like chained up. Like, he's a monster. No.
Isn't that how superheroes begin?
It cured him.
Turned into the Hulk.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
awesome.
I wasn't eating because I couldn't even have thought of food at that time.
And when you're sick too, man, the thought of food, like food doesn't even taste good.
I was in the hospital room, and I'm not kidding you. Because they wanted me to eat, obviously, and they would put the Food Network on TV in there
to try to entice you.
Turn this off. I'm going to up.
Yeah, you're sitting there like,
yeah. And they would even say, "Hey, do you want a beer?" You know, because beer was good. You know, I go, nope, nothing. And I wasn't even a drinker at that point, so I didn't anyway. But
we'll pour the beer in your IV. No.
Slow drip.
Yeah, get your slow drip going on. Get some sort of calorie
Could you make it Yingling, please?
Yeah.
If you're going to do anything, I appreciate it.
You just have a brewmaster off to the side, like messing with your IV.
So that's my big thing. So
I think my third one, and this is a much more lighthearted one than falling off a cliff or whatever. I could tell you, like, I've almost drowned a couple of different times when I was a kid.
One time, you better come up with a really good one after this.
One time, I've literally, it was a huge snow day, and there was like, me and my buddy were sledding, and we ended up going out on the ice, and the ice broke, and I actually went under. Like, if my friend saved my life, it's crazy, a huge, crazy story. But I'll do a lighthearted story.
I was all ready for the dark one.
Were you ready for the dark one? No. I growing up, I was in music. So I played trumpet for like 3 or 4 years, and then I switched and played tuba actually in high school. Like my whole high school career, I played tuba.
Tuba player?
I was a tuba player. I played the tuba. So I was in marching band and I was in concert.
Let me interrupt. Do you still have a tuba?
I don't, because I used the one that like the school had, because they were like, of all instruments.
I wanted him to come in one morning during the show and play tuba.
And I still can. But fun fact, the tuba is like the most expensive instrument because it's a lot of metal. I mean, it's a lot of material to make those big things. So in marching band,
buy a Tesla.
Yeah, I know. They're called sousaphones, right? So in the marching band, they were a little lighter. They're made out of fiberglass, but they wrap like all the way around your body. And you get this like little foam, like square, like padding.
I'm picturing Jordan with a...
Yeah, you better believe it, dude. I was boom. You better believe it.
You and the drum line, you know.
So me and my buddy, we ended up, he played tuba as well, and we had like for Halloween, we'd always do this like weird costume kind of march parade thing. And what we did was we got like a 4XL, the biggest XL shirt we could find. and we were like Siamese twins. We both got in the shirt. We both were playing tuba, so we both had these giant tubas wrapped around us, and we marched in it, and we were sitting there like spinning, twirling around, doing all sorts of fun things. But yeah, so fun fact,
Please tell me there's video of this somewhere.
Yeah, there is somewhere, 100%. But yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Jordan's dad, will you please, Mom and Dad, will you get this to us? Thank you.
But yeah, I was in concert band and marching band for many years. So
good grief.
Yeah, it was fun.
Everyone's like, I can't top that.
Yeah, I really can't. Because that's another edition of KATcast. No. Gosh, I mean, there's all kinds of things. I mean, when you talk about, people saving lives and stuff. So I've never saved anybody's life, so don't think that. But as a kid, my brother and I were on the four-wheeler, and we were going around and checking cattle. And it had rained the night before, and so the creek had kind of washed out. And we were going across the creek, and the four-wheeler flipped. And it threw my brother off, and it pinned me underneath in the creek. And
how old were you?
I'm thinking I was about 8 or 9, and so then my brother Johnny would have been 12 or 13. So, 12 or 13-year-old kid, it wasn't like, he was pounding protein shakes and in the gym all the time. He was a band kid. And, you always hear about, like, people who get superhuman strength.
He got his tuba?
No. Okay. Somebody who has superhuman strength.
Yes.
Well, that was my brother that day because he was able to somehow lift that four-wheeler off of me.
That's crazy.
And get me out from underneath it in the creek.
That's incredible.
That is amazing how suddenly the human body just summons the strength it needs.
It's got to be adrenaline or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an adrenaline surge, but I think it was more like, oh my God, I don't want to have to tell Mom and Dad.
Yeah, that too.
If you've ever met my dad, he's kind of an imposing figure. So there was a lot of things. There was a lot of things that we were like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. Otherwise, we're like, got to tell Dad. We never wanted to tell Dad.
They should do more studies on that, though, of like what adrenaline does to the body. Because you're right. Like, you hear stories where, like, Mom lifts cars up, and you're like, is there like some hidden potential that humans have that we don't know? Yeah. They like inject them with tons of adrenaline and see what happens.
It's like, Dad,
as a kid, you're always, you never want to get in trouble.
Yeah,
that's like your big goal as a kid. Is you don't want to get in trouble.
Dad, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is we checked out the cattle.
The bad news is the four-wheeler is destroyed.
And is on top of Aaron.
In the creek.
I've been run over by a four-wheeler. I was with one of my buddies growing up, and we hit a ditch, and I got flung. I was behind him, right? So he was like the one driving.
Yeah.
And so I got flung forward, and he just ran right over me, man. It hurt so bad. But hey,
we never did that.
I was still good,
But yeah, I mean, that was probably my first brush with death as a youth.
Well, there is our great revealing
farm life
KATcast.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you learned a little something that you didn't know about.
Something about each of us. And if you got something fun that you want to tell us about, we promise not to tell anybody unless you want us to.
Yeah, absolutely.
catcountry@mailzimmer.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And that is this edition of the Cat Country KATcast.
You've been listening to the KATcast, your weekly dose of fun from the staff you know and love on 94.3 Cat Country. Click subscribe and never miss an episode. Share it on social media and tell your friends with 94.3 Cat Country.